All right, all right. never, never ceases to amaze me. Every day is something. And today, it ain't what you thought it might be, as Mike Norvell apparently is still a leading candidate for the Alabama job. Oh no. Breaking news. Breaking news. FSU. Matter of fact, we're going to look at it together. I'll look at it together. Uh, interesting, interesting stuff here. So we'll just get right into it, man, not waste yours or my time. Essentially, before we get into the read, basically, this is coming from the Amarius Mims situations a couple years ago. And just continues to show how much of a shit show that whole situation turned out to be. Um, Rising Spirit isn't even no longer a collective due to this incident, but FSU is just now, I guess. I guess there was an investigation, and the NCAA and the school came to this. Whatever you're about to see as the penalties for this, Alex Atkins is being named as the culprit, serving a 3-game suspension. Let's just get into it, man. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna. All right. Let's see. The sanctions, wide ranging and broad, are tied to the spring of 2022 recruiting event. Okay, so we know where that timeline adds up, and a part of a resolution negotiated between the school and the NCAA. So obviously, this has been an ongoing thing behind the scenes that's been happening. So this isn't like new to Florida State. Obviously, they knew what was coming. Assistant coach, offensive coordinator Alex Atkins is found to have committed 2 level 2 violations. Now, we're going to read this and then I'm going to have some questions. But 2 level 2 violations, which include impermissible recruiting activity and facilitating impermissible contact with the NIL related booster, i.e., Rising Spirit. Atkins is alleged to have driven a prospect and his parents to a meeting with a leading member of the school's NIL collective, Rising Spirit. Probably that was the meeting where then War Chant broke. Amarius Mims is coming to Tallahassee. I'm assuming it's that meeting that we're allegedly, well, not allegedly, but assuming that's what we're talking about here. Anyway, during that meeting, according to the NCAA, a booster encouraged the prospect to enroll at FSU, offered him an NIL opportunity with that collective worth approximately $15K per during the first year at the school. Again, all this timeline is adding up. If you remembered everything that happened at that time, with the War Chant breaking that news, with that, all of this adds up. As part of the penalties, Atkins will be suspended the first 3 games of next year, and is given a 2-year show cause. A show cause requires a school who hires Atkins to explain the decision to the NCAA officials. Atkins is expected to remain at FSU staff in his current role. Interesting tidbit right there. In the first of its kind of the NIL era, the school must disassociate with the collective. The collective isn't even a thing anymore. Representative for a term of 3 years. Again, Battle's End is the leading collective. Rising Spirit does not even, it ain't there. As part of the disassociation, FSU cannot accept assistance, blah, blah, blah. Again, none of this matters because the Rising Spirit is no longer a thing. But here's some interesting stuff. Other penalties do include a two years of probation. Don't know what that means. I'm assuming the probation inquires all these things below. It has nothing about any postseason bans, nothing about any bowl bans. It says scholarship reductions of 5 over the next 2 academic years, a reduction by 7 in the visits for next year, a prohibition on recruiting communication for 6 weeks over the next 2 academic years, including this week. Interesting. Prohibition on communication with athletes in the portal starting this spring portal window. So I wonder how you enforce some of these things. A reduction by 18 evaluation days in the spring. Financial penalty of 1% of their athletic department's budget. Those are the hot notes. This is everybody, so they're up to speed. everything coming from the, again, Amarius Mims situation. My question is, my main question is, where are these rules? Where are these rules? Where are these rules posted? Very interesting for me, man. Where are these rules? Where are these bylaws that say what a school can and can't do? My guess is just at the time in 2022, if you remember, at that time. So I think this is where this thing gets murky in terms of, if you remember, at that time, the state of Florida had a law that the schools and the collectives had to be separate entities. Not only did they have to be separate entities, but they could not associate in any way. So if you remember at that time with the Rising Spear, when a lot of these NIL deals were coming about, they would post these graphics, and in the graphics, the jerseys and helmets would be blanked out. It'd just be just a blanked out garnet jersey and a number, and no spear on a helmet, just a gold helmet. That's because at the time there could be no cooperation between the school and the collective. Obviously, that's not the case now. You go on Battle's End, everybody's in FSU gear. At that time, my guess is this is where all this stems from. That at the time, Rising Spear was obviously, if Alex Atkins was involved, driving the man to a meeting with Rising Spear, that automatically associates the school with the collective. Bam! That's how that goes. I mean, that's just me off the top of the dome. How that seems to look. Again, it kind of goes back to War Chant breaking some news that had no business being broken. Give me a second. Do I want to blame it all on the War Chant? I mean, if War Chant doesn't break that meeting and how that all took place, nobody gets wind of this. This all happens behind the scenes, and so it's just an interesting thing. Is FSU the only school that's? It's like in all of these things. No, not the only school that probably conducted themselves in this manner. Unfortunately for Florida State, they're the ones that got caught. Absolutely crazy. The penalties are kind of. Let's go back over these penalties real quick. Penalties are kind of in my opinion. Atkins serving a 3-game suspension is like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Scholarship reduction of 5. Those are always not good. Anytime you are basically, taking basically players from the amount of players. So 2 seasons, basically 10 scholarships over the next 2 years is not great. Reduction of 7 official visits essentially just this means they got to be now more picky with who they invite on campus. I don't think that's a big one. If you don't feel like you're in it for a kid, just tell them you can't visit because I can't spare a visit on you. Just this one, the recruiting communication for 6 weeks. Again, I wouldn't even be worried about that. Be honest with you, they'll find a way to communicate it, and that's only. This is this year, and I guess next year. The portal window for this year and the spring is interesting, but again, telling me that you're limiting a school's ability to contact kids is like, it's like, okay, whatever. The reduction of 18 evaluation days in the spring is a very interesting one. I don't necessarily know what that one means. Maybe somebody with more that knows actually what that means. 18 evaluation days. I'm assuming that means recruiting, so that doesn't have anything to do with like practices or anything. So maybe that affects FSU's, big time spring events that they like to hold for recruiting. I don't know. And then the 1% of the athletic department would be whatever, don't like the scholarships, 2 years of probation. I wonder, is all of this covered in the 2 years of probation, or is there more of it? But I don't see anything of a postseason ban or anything like that. So, man, for me, it's like, what is this? This has obviously been an investigation that's been basically 2 years, at least, 2 years in the works. What are y'all's thoughts as FSU continues to get blindsided by wave after wave of things? We got Ferguson from Alabama today. That's a big thing. Big addition to the old line. I was hoping that the only thing we were going to talk about is was the additions, and then here we go. And Mike is still in the running for the Bama job, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, man, that's the breaking news. I kind of wanted to get it out there and get everybody's thoughts. I know, I was shocked by it. I guess it could have been worse. I don't really look at a lot of that and go, oh my God, this is gonna kill the program. I guess the question you could ask is it a coincidence of Mike's alleged involvement or alleged interviewing with Bama and these probation, this probation, this sanction thing? Is that tied to one or the other? Would Mike Norvell be out of here due to this? By the sounding of that, that would be a huge blow to Alex Atkins, as he can't get hired anywhere without a team explaining the hire, just at least for the next 2 years. So would a team even touch Alex Atkins if Mike Norvell was to take the Bama job? If Mike Norvell was to take the Bama job, could he take Alex Atkins with him? How does that work? Crazy, man. I kind of agree with that. The 5 scholarship thing isn't great, also isn't terrible. The problem is you can't. 10 over 2 years is, that can be that. Think about that. That's take 5 away from our class now and a 5 away from our alleged, whatever our class would be. Those could be big time players. So you never know. I don't like the scholarship thing. That's the thing that I think for me hits the hardest. Everything else doesn't bother me. I'm just gonna scan through comments, guys. So if you dropped a super chat, I may have missed it. Let me scroll up, see if anybody dropped anything. Actually, yes, we do have one. Let me get to this. Jeff with a $10 dono. He says, so the NCAA can know how to do their job when it comes to us, but Michigan can cheat their way to the playoffs and nothing be done okay. Well, Harbaugh got suspended. I think that's still being investigated. I don't know what's going to come of that Michigan thing, but shout out to Jeff, man. Jeff. Let's go back to this one. Man, screw ESPN, the NCAA, and college football. You can't tell me this isn't a direct result of investigating them for the snub. Well, I don't think they're correlated. I know that's what's going to be talked about. Rising Spear has been dissolved because of this. All of this has happened over the course of a year and a half or whatever it's been, since 2022 probably. I don't know when the investigation first came down. We just know the penalties are coming down shortly. We don't know when the investigation was even implemented. I don't think and obviously in the article it says the program and the NCAA came to an agreement or whatever, however they worded that. Again, so I don't think they're correlated in any way. It's just impeccable timing by the NCAA. I'll say that. Well, Florida State is here. I'll show it. I'll put it back on the screen for you. Scroll up for you. Sources: NCAA to levy significant penalties on Florida State for the NIL recruiting violations. Well, here's the thing. I think the problem is, again, Alex Atkins driving the kid to the meeting. At that time, with the laws that were in place, if anything, that was the only rule that was in place for NIL, was that the school in the state of Florida, the schools and the collective could not be linked. They had to be two separate entities. It's hard to say that when the school is driving the player there. Bad move by Alex Atkins. Bad move by the whole staff, by nobody catching that and not having a third party. You know, you could have, I mean, come on. I mean, that's kind of, honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you, that's kind of amateur. You could have had a third party. You could have paid for a third party to drive that family to that meeting. So at that time, you know, that's just piss poor execution in that, in my opinion. I'm not worried either, but hey, it's worth noting. Yeah, I'm saying Uber. I mean, you could have paid for a limo. You could have, like, if you wanted to do something extravagant, you could have paid for him a limo. You could have had a third party ride him out there. Absolutely, Jay. So kind of amateur at that time to do it in that manner. I mean, that's also hindsight speaking. But it's apparent, right? FSU tampered with Mims. That's not the breaking news. That tampering is going all over college football. It's just the time period. If that was happening today, this wouldn't be an issue. If Alex Atkins drove Terrence Ferguson to talk to the Battle's End, that wouldn't even be an issue now, right? Because of the way this stuff can be done. In 2022, that was an issue, and War Chant prematurely breaking that information, I don't want to say is the cause of this, obviously. But come on, man. If you wait till everything's kind of done, I don't want to say War Chant's the cause of this, but I don't think they help FSU's case in this matter at all. So I don't plan on being on here super long. I just want to get this out for y'all. It's, in my opinion, I mean, it is what, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, I'm okay with it. If you're talking about the penalty as Atkins drove a kid, that's the cheating scandal of it. I mean, I guess. Again, the timelines add up. It was definitely Mims. I don't think it matters, guys. The scholarship thing is the only thing for me that I go, I would like to have those 10 players. You feel me? I would like to have those 10 players. It also kind of sucks that you get a sanction for Mims and he ain't even here. Like, I mean, that kind of sucks. You get sanctioned for a kid, like, at least like when USC got their sanctions for Reggie Bush, like at least Reggie Bush won a Heisman and won a Natty. You get a sanction for Mims, and it's like, he didn't even come here. kind of sucks. So I don't think they can fight it. I think they've already came to a settlement from the way the article sounded. I got rid of it, so I'd have to pull it back up. But from what we read in the article, the school and the NCAA came to this conclusion together. So I don't know. I don't think they can fight it. I don't think it's up for fight anymore. I think they spent the last year behind the scenes determining what the fight was, and this has been the outcome of this. So no, I don't think they can fight it. Just, how I interpret what I read. Feels when NCAA violated us for recruiting parties. Everyone has recruiting parties. The NCAA is a joke. That's not me just saying this because of this. I've been saying the NCAA is a joke for the last few years now, hell, if not longer, but of course on this channel for the last few years. They let NIL run rampant. It's like you have Addison, remember how he, Biletnikoff, portal, straight to USC. So we've known tampering has been around. We just can't figure it. Florida State's the only one, I think, because of War Chant, that left a trail that NCAA was able to prove. That's how I look at that. That's how I look at that. I think Michigan is actually still Harbaugh was the immediate penalty for the 3-game suspension. So Atkins gets the same penalty as Harbaugh. I think the actual, but I still think Michigan is actually currently still under investigation. So we'll see. Mike does do walk-ons a lot. So yeah, I don't like losing 10 players over 2 years, essentially. But that's the worst part of it. The 10 scholarships, the 5 a year. It's only 5 a year. I wonder how that's distributed. Well, I mean, I know how it's distributed, 5 a year, but I wonder if they can. Well, the way it was worded was 5 a year. And what I was getting at, I wonder if they could take more like this year and then let the 10 take an effect all at once, maybe, is a way to counteract that. But the way it was worded was 5 a year. So we'll just go with that assumption. What games will Atkins miss? My assumption will be the first 3 games of the season. I figure you just get it out the way. First 3 games. Well, there's a reason why I went at War Chant the way I did when the situation happened. Now we kind of know the fallout from that. At the end of the day, man, the biggest question I really have is, does this influence Norvell one way or other with this Alabama job? Lanning turned him down, if you're not aware. Dan Lanning turned him down, which is a bit of a surprise for me. I think that's a good move for Dan Lanning, to be honest with you, man. Let's talk a little bit about this Bama job. As some of this sanction stuff still continues to resonate here. That Bama job doesn't, to be the first person after Saban, I don't know if that's a situation anybody wants to be in. I don't know if that is the job that certain people want to take. I think that's a good thing for Lanning to stay. He's recruiting well at Oregon. Oregon gets poached routinely. Maybe this can make Oregon a destination job if Lanning can come full circle there. You got to think about Washington's head coach. Is he going to be able to do this again at Washington? The problem with Washington's head coach, if you're Bama, might be a good head coach. Can that guy go into the South and recruit? I think that's the biggest risk reward hire, is that one. Good coach, but that doesn't mean he can come down in the Southeast and recruit like that. Dabo doesn't look like. If you would have asked me after Lanning, I would have told you Dabo is going to be the next coach. I just read something online that says Dabo would have to pay like a portion of his own salary. Like apparently he has an exclusive clause in his contract apparently in regards to the Alabama job. Like Clemson was not playing when they wrote up that contract with him. And that if he took like the Alabama job, he has to pay a certain amount of money, which is ridiculous. So probably not Dabo. So now, where do you go? Do you Mike Norvell, Loxley? I've heard. I don't know, man. With these sanctions, do you think that Mike Norvell is like going like again? They're not program crushing sanctions by any means. But at Bama, he won't be facing any of that. I don't know. I think all of this stuff is coming out at a very interesting time. I don't think it's a coincidence. I really don't. You know, it's far be it for me to start a conspiracy. I don't think it's a coincidence that Norvell gets this. Norvell is all a month ago in December. Norvell was talked about of having a terrible culture, kids opting out, blah. You know, they did all but bury Mike Norvell, saying he didn't have control of his program essentially by all the opt-outs. And then for a month later, he's an amazing coach. What he did at Florida State was amazing. Let's give him an Alabama job. That's literally what's happened in the span of a month with Mike Norvell, if you haven't been paying attention. What they were saying a month ago to what they're saying now. And then I don't think it's a coincidence that the NCAA try to that they dropped this at this moment. I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence FSU suing the ACC and all this stuff that's coming about. FSU's in for a battle in that, and we'll see what happens with Mike Norvell. If Mike is truly about to climb, he stays and builds a dynasty. That would be more impressive than taking over a team. I mean, you know, you can preach to the choir, Jonathan. I get it. We all speak from a place on the outside where we can all say things like, you know, if you're really about it, be about it. Until someone's waving $12 million a year in your face. And all that stuff you talk about goes out the window. Like, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't Bama again, I don't know who they hire. I think that job's harder to fill than originally thought. Once they didn't get Lanning, I think it told you kind of what you needed to be told in the sense of that job might not be the job everybody thinks it is. Saban made that job the job it is. Now you're talking about, again, taking, and I mentioned this last night when we talked about it, the air's thick of Nick Saban in that office. Do you go sit in that same office? The pressure. The first guy is going to be the first guy is probably all but set up to fail. Who wants to be that first guy is the question. I don't think it's Deion. First of all, I don't think Deion's coaching past next year, so let alone coaching at Alabama. Shedeur goes pro, Deion's done coaching. Well, I mean, maybe they could match. But again, you got these probations. Like, FSU has to pay 1% of the athletic department budget for the next 2 years. I don't know what that number is, but that could be Mike's raise. Like, that could be his raise. I don't know what that is, but that could be his raise. You feel me? Mike's already making a little over $8 million, so you could definitely, like, one or two things are going to come from this. Mike's going to go to Alabama, or Mike's going to get a hell of a raise. Either way, he's not going to be probably making this $8 million that he's making at this point much longer. My only question is, again, do these sanctions play a part in Mike Norvell's future decision? On the outside, you look at it, you look at all the moves that are being made. And you say, oh, Mike's moving as he normally would, which is a good sign. Still adding players from the portal, still recruiting. That's a good sign. But you just got to wait and see now. You got to wait and see. I expected Bama to have this job filled in 72 hours, like before the start of next week. By Sunday, I still think we'll know who the coach is. But the Lanning thing makes it a little bit more interesting, and where they pivot and who they are really looking to hire. That's what I do at this point. You got to buckle up and see what happens. I've been ignoring most of the troll comments, but this is a valid question from New King. If Norvell did leave, who would y'all hire next? I had this conversation with somebody earlier. I honestly don't have a candidate for you. The way Mike Norvell has built this program and the foundation that he's laid, I don't know who would be in the running. I think we're past like the Mark Stoops and some of these other guys. I don't know. It's a great question that I don't have an answer for. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing you can say. I agree with this comment. They're inconvenient. The sanctions aren't program crushing. All right, they don't change the trajectory of your program, but they are inconvenient. They are inconvenient. They definitely are inconvenient, and you're gonna have to navigate around them. But it can be done, and they're only for 2 years at that. This year coming up and the next, like it's. You look at the way they've attacked the portal, and outside of quarterback, everybody's a multi-year player. So the way they've entered the portal, a top 10 recruiting class, which probably will get bumped up here a couple spots as they just got crystal ball for my defensive end out of Palm Beach. Excuse me. So the foundation's laid. It's a young team next year. We did the numbers last night. 33 freshmen on that roster. You do have the team that could sustain 2 years -5 a year. Like, it's not going to kill your program, but an inconvenience for sure. I agree with that. I believe coaches are worth every amount of money they get. First of all, college coaching is the best job in the world. It's the only job where you can be terrible and get paid to go sit away. Jimbo Fisher, Willie Taggart, all of those guys. Matter of fact, I think Willie Taggart comes off the books. Did Willie Taggart already come off? I think December Willie Taggart came off the books, I think. That could be a part of Mike's raise. I think Taggart came off the books in December. Either December or this month. I think they're done paying Willie. But it's the only job that you can get paid for going away. You suck, man, we'll give you $20 million to go sit somewhere else. In Jimbo's case, we'll give you $75 million to not suck here anymore. And then everything they have to deal with, I'll be honest with you, I think college coaches make their money's worth. A lot of sleepless, restless, and baggy, droopy eyes and gray hairs in college coaching. Braun, I hear you. I don't have a candidate. I'll be honest with you. That's true too. What we're not talking about, all this NIL stuff we're talking about. Maybe the Battle's End can help Mike Norvell's. Let's give Mike Norvell an NIL deal. How about we do that? Agreed. That was my point. You have a good core for these 5 scholarships. That's 5 players that you won't be able to bring in a year. So, for instance, in this class, you have a class of 20 some odd players. You just reduce it by 5 or whatever the case is. I don't disagree with that premise. Again, he's moving on the outside. He's moving as he's going to be here. I don't disagree with you. But again, that's why you have agents. Mike's going to do his job, but his agent is talking to whoever his agent is talking to, those Alabama board of trustees and them people. And if that agent come back, which is Sexton, and says, Mike, Bama's offering you $12 million a year. What you doing? Where do you think he's going to go? Congratulations for Mike for continuing his job. But he's going to, was it last year? I think it was this year, man. I think this year was his last year. Maybe I'm wrong and it was last year. I think it was this year, though. No. For anybody that's asking that question about if Mike Norvell does leave, should FSU go after Deion? Shut that up. I want to hear that shit. One more time. Should FSU go after Deion? Shut that up. I want to hear that shit. No. No. I'm good on that. First of all, I've continue to say Deion's not coaching past this upcoming year. I wholeheartedly believe that. And then what has Deion showed you that he even deserves that job, other than the spectacle, which we always talk about? People mentioned it about Bama. Deion can't do X, Y, Z, but man, you put that Bama logo behind him. Yes, the spectacle that is Deion is the only thing he brings to a program. And I'm not going to make this about Deion, but to answer your question, no, we're good. What's going on, Pat? Oh, okay, so this month. I knew it was upcoming. So this month, we're done with the Willie Taggart checks. Shout out to Willie, man. Shout out to Willie. Sure, I think it depended on a lot of things. Sure, they can match it if they want to. I believe they can. I believe if you want to keep a coach that continues to have the success that we think Mike Norvell's continue to have, you're going to have to eventually match him. Other jobs will eventually become open. So at some point, you got to pay up. 2 high-profile jobs have came open this year. Texas A&M. If you remember, Mike Norvell was rumored to be looked at by Texas A&M, but of course they went with Elko. Elko, obviously a good pickup for them. And now he's here at the Bama job. So anytime a high-profile job comes up, don't let Sark is lucky that he went to the play. Sark is lucky because the way his first 2 years in Texas went, Sark made the playoff. Shout out to Sark because he was on the verge, and there was a lot of buzz that Texas would be interested in Mike Norvell. Made a lot of sense. I don't know if Bama makes a lot of sense for Mike Norvell in terms of fit, and all the things. But you're not going to turn down the money that Bama's going to offer you, most likely. You're not going to turn down the logo that is Alabama. I'm not naive enough to think Mike would turn it down unless FSU matched it. If FSU matches it, then I think you stay, because I don't think the Bama logo is any bigger than FSU's. The fan bases might be a little bit more rabid, but even that's debatable. The biggest thing Bama has going for them, though, is that SEC, right? And they are the kings of that SEC. And that's why FSU's making the moves they're making at this moment. Does Mike Norvell see all this through? The climb that we've called it? That's a great question. Does Mike Norvell see through the move, this lawsuit against the ACC? The standing only facility that's still in the process of being built. Does Mike Norvell see all of these things through, see the fruits of it? Or did he maybe lay the foundation for someone else? I don't know. The sanctions don't help the case. I don't know if they drastically hurt the case either. What are your point? What are your thoughts, Tyler? You just now seeing this. What's your thoughts? Well, the Battle's End don't really have to keep it on the low. And I'm not. The law changed. That's the biggest issue between now and when this happened. The law changed. The Battle's End can be, they can step in toe and foot with the university. Battle's End in Florida State can be linked at the hip because the law changed. At the time in 2022, the law said the collective could have no parts of the university. You know, it's why, if you remember, at that same time, John Ruiz was a separate entity from the Miami Hurricanes, which is why he also, to John Ruiz's credit, he was offering that Florida Gator. Remember that Florida Gator player? He offered him an NIL deal. I think that deal ended up falling through or not happening. Something happened with that. But from an optic standpoint, Ruiz acted as a separate entity from from University of Miami. Now, everybody already knew the truth, just like with Rising Spirit, you know the truth, but they acted independent. The problem is Florida State and the Rising Spirit didn't, by what Atkins didn't act independently. Mr. H says, I'm sorry, people, but I have to say this. Being though he's an FSU alum, I love primetime, but let's be honest, he's a hype job when it comes to coaching. I said, well, hey, you're not saying anything that I don't think anybody disagrees with you in here. New King says he could see Norvell going to Michigan. No, then you don't know Mike Norvell and his lineage. He's not going to Michigan. Lane Kiffin, I think stuff like the Lane Kiffin ship has sailed. I think like would you even want Mark Stoops at this point? I don't think so. Right? Lane Kiffin has built Ole Miss to the best that it's ever been. If I'm Lane Kiffin, unless it's Alabama, why do I leave Ole Miss? I don't think so. I don't think Ole Miss is a job, personally. Very similar to Dan Lanning in Oregon. Lane Kiffin's put so much work in there. Why would you all of a sudden leave it? I think if FSU loses Norvell to Bama, I think it comes real. I'm not saying they won't hire a great coach. I just don't know who would that be at this moment. Why do you think we're hearing more about? Because of what I just said. Lane putting in that work at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, he's put Ole Miss into a position next year to probably compete for the West. I think that's part of it. And I don't know what his contract situation looks like over there at Ole Miss. But the part that's really not getting talked about a lot is Mike Norvell has a $4 million buyout, guys. That is chump change. That is easy. Like, I would say this: if FSU gives Norvell a raise up in the upcoming days or whatever, they better do themselves a favor. If you want to make Mike Norvell a tough poach, up his buyout. Now I know what that means. It means also it's harder for you to fire him because you still got to. The buyout works both ways. It works for the team that's hiring or the school that's firing. But you might want to up the buyout at this point if you're Florida State, if you're serious about keeping Mike Norvell. Like Dan Lanning's buyout, $20 million. So not only did Dan Lanning say he's staying at Oregon, but that $20 million also was a great anchor to have Bama like, okay, do we really want to push the buttons here? Or just like, okay, Dan, you're good. And that's true too. That's a good point too. Ole Miss don't have the expectations. Whether Ole Miss, whether he wins 10 or 8 games at Ole Miss, they're just happy to be in the winning side of football and playing in meaningful games. But there's no national championship buzz over there. You got to remember, Lane coached at big programs now, Tennessee, USC. So Alabama's right up his alley. He has experience at big programs. But it's kind of one of those situations where Lane's in the sweet spot, making good enough money, has good access to talent, and doesn't have the pressure of some of those other rabid SEC schools like Bama, like he would have at an FSU. Y'all know how we act over here. If Bama couldn't, like, that'd be a great hire. The problem is if Bama couldn't get him from Oregon, what makes you think FSU would be able to get him from Oregon? Unless you think that the only reason Lanning didn't take that job is because he didn't want to come behind Nick Saban. Absolutely. There's no coincidence Lanning has that $20 million buyout. They learned. I don't disagree with you. I just know that money talks, but money talks both ways. Bama makes an offer. Alfred's going to have a chance to counter that offer. So I don't disagree with anything you said here. On the surface, I think everything looks pretty good for Florida State, except for these sanctions here. Sanctions don't help anybody. But again, I think they're more of a nuisance or annoying. They are like legit dropping the hammer. But this is just my uneducated opinion. People that maybe know more maybe can have a bigger insight on what the sanctions actually mean. But from what I read, again, more of an annoyance than anything. I don't disagree. I've said that last night. Alabama will have a coach by Sunday. I agree with that. I'm trying to tell you, bro, every single time something's going good, we get kicked in the dick. Every single time. I was just thinking that when this came down, I'm like, oh, man, we got a big-time O-line transfer portal guy, a guy who we were recruiting out of high school. Wham, right in the nuts. NCAA penalizes Florida State. Absolutely amazing. I love it. Bring Prime home. Is he coming to Louisville? Because he ain't coming here. What's your opinion on Tony Elliott? Clemson was rolling on offense. Yes. Yeah, what about him? UVA. I'm good. At least win some games at Virginia. Like that, again, that's the problem, man. When we talk about who would you bring in? I'm not bringing in a coach who is barely winning games at Virginia. That's just me, though. And I know they were doing good at Clemson as an OC. But so Atkins got busted in the Mim situation. Just for a quick recap, because I'm only going to do this hour, and then I'm going to get on up out of here, man. But again, hit the like button. Emergency live stream in Florida State. NIL. The Marion Mim situation gets brought full circle. And you see just how poorly that whole thing was managed. Remember how I talked about that summer. I talked about that summer, how bad that was, and people tried to downplay it. Well, you kind of see the fallout of it now. That whole thing was mismanaged poorly. and that's basically what this is. Alex Atkins drove the family to a meeting with Rising Spear, where they offered him $15K a month. And FSU has now received NCAA sanctions, which include Atkins getting a 3-game suspension, a 1% of the athletic budget department's fine for the next 2 years, or 10 scholarships being reducted for 2 years, 5 a year, so 10 over the next 2 years. The good news: no mention of a postseason ban. So FSU, if you still win on the field, FSU can still compete in the postseason. The good news also, your roster's intact for next year. It's going to be interesting to see that stuff going forward. But I think FSU, like, a lot of it makes sense. If you look at the way they've conducted themselves in this portal window, they've brought players that people have questioned. Well, it kind of makes sense why they are gearing up before the sanctions took place. That maybe they'll have some guy they can try to offset those 10 scholarships. That's kind of the big takeaways. Marco, you got to be a smarter fan. If Prime was our coach, we wouldn't have been 13-0. Right? So people that say that to me, like, you got to be smarter than that. Like Stephen A. said that. But if Prime's the coach, we weren't 13-0. And there's nothing Deion Sanders has shown you that showed that he would have went undefeated, because he didn't do it at Jackson State when he had the most talented team in all of HBCU. He couldn't go undefeated. Damn sure didn't do it at Colorado. So nothing in Prime's resume said he would have went undefeated. So we still would have got left out of the playoff picture. So no, it's not true. Man, who you telling, Will? This is crazy. Hey, I'm with you, Jonathan. I'm with you. That's 10 over 2 years. Yes, we lose 5 scholarships per year. That's what the article said. We lose 5 scholarships. I'm gonna read it again just to make sure I don't, because you know me. First of all, I'm just a light-skinned dude on YouTube, so I don't put information out. I just reiterate the information, but I want to make sure I'm reading it right. So hold on. I'm gonna go back to the article. Go back to the penalties here. Hold on. Okay, I stand corrected. Here, let me bring this up. So it's not 5 scholarships over the next 2 years. This could either be better or worse. Hold on a second. Let me bring this up. It's 5%. Hold on. So you can see it right there on your screen. 2-year probation, scholarship reductions of 5% over the next 2 academic years. So I'd be curious to know what that number is. Depending on the amount of scholarships, 5% might be a scholarship or 2. Let's try some rough math here. Let's say, what do y'all think? How many spots are there on a football roster? 80. I'm gonna do some rough math, y'all, because I'm not the smartest. I'm not the smartest cookie in the cookie jar. But let's say there's 86 roster spots. What is 86 86 times 2. So rough math. 86 times 2 is 172 times 0.05. That's about 8 to 9 scholarships over the next 2 years, which is a little less than what it's still in the same ballpark, but it's a little less than me. And that's just assuming that the number is 86. I don't know what the number for scholarships actually is. But that 5% actually is not as bad as originally thought, maybe. Might be a few scholarships less than originally thought. So thanks for the correction. Thanks for that correction. You're absolutely right. 5% over the next 2 academic years, not 5 scholarships. So appreciate that, Sports Smart. Okay. So there y'all go. Y'all corrected me. I read it wrong. That's why we go back and that's why we do these things. Appreciate that, y'all. I thought I could have sworn I read it the first time. It said 5 a year. You guys are absolutely right. Kirby totally snitched. Well, I think War Chant snitched before Kirby did. I think War Chant broke that shit too early. But here we are. But man, I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here again. I just wanted to do an hour long of the emergency of what's going on. As the portal continues to bless us with more abundance of talent, it's actually good to know that we're only losing about 4 to 5 scholarships. So that's not that big of a deal, actually. It's even, again, more of an annoyance than it is actual major penalties being fined on FSU. Okay, so the article I was reading is wrong. And both Zach, shout out to 247, came out and clarified. Good. I'm only going by the information I'm given, and that's just the article that I read. So that was by Yahoo. So if the Yahoo article's wrong, damn it, I'm wrong. But okay, shout out to 247. They clarified some things. So that's good. That's good. So again, man, I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. I'm sure more stuff will come out as the week continues. FSU is still targeting recruits as the week continues. And Mark Norvell still may potentially be interviewing for a job as the week continues. I didn't plan on going live tonight, but I had to go live tonight because of this. I agree with Tyler. We served our postseason ban this year. That's exactly what happened. But tomorrow night, I plan on doing something again tomorrow night, hopefully more positive, even though I don't think this is that negative. Again, I think, again, annoyance, unfortunate. It's not as terrible as I maybe originally thought, of the way those headlines made it seem. And when you get into the kind of the weeds of it, again, whatever. At this point, you can't hurt me anymore. You can't hurt me. I watched my 13-0 team not get a chance to compete for a national championship. I've watched Jacksonville State, sorry. I've suffered through 0-4, 5-7, 3-6. You can't hurt me no more. You can't hurt me at all. These sanctions, brush that off, man. Until tomorrow night, y'all. You have a great rest of y'all's Thursday evening. And I'm out here, man. Breaking news. Man, FSU can't catch a break. But at the end of the day, man, we're going to be better and stronger for it. As always, y'all stay classy, Seminoles. We out here, go Noles. I'll holler at y'all tomorrow night.